I'd like to call this meeting of the Sterling Heights City Council to order. Please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Remain standing for the invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dear God, please bless our elected officials. Grant them courage and wisdom to do what is right for all citizens. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Mrs. Riska. Can we please have the roll call?
Mayor Taylor,
Here.
Mrs. Sarowski,
Here.
Mrs. Koski,
Present.
Mr. Radke,
Present.
Mrs. Schmidt,
Present.
Mr. Shannon,
Present.
Mrs. Zarko.
Present.
Thank you, Council. We need approval of the agenda.
Mr. Mayor,
Mrs. Koski.
move to approve the agenda.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Is there any discussion? No discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. First item on our agenda tonight is a report from our city manager, Mark Vanderpool. Mr. Vanderpool.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple of updates with the holiday season approaching. First, city offices will be closed on Monday, December 24th, and of course on Christmas, and also on New Year's Day. And, well, let's see, it would be the 31st and New Year's Day, January 1st. Refuse collection will be delayed one day, so anything on Tuesday will be then collected on Wednesday, and everything will be backed up one day then, so Saturday will be the final catch-up day. And also, just as a reminder for everyone, the city is recycling Christmas trees again, so you can leave them at the curb by 7 a.m. on your normal collection day, and that program will extend through January 31st. All the Christmas trees are shredded or chipped, I should say, through the shredder, and nothing is landfilled. So obviously it's environmentally friendly, and we're glad to continue this program and appreciate GFL collecting those and in turn using them for wood chips throughout the area. Also, I wanted to highlight all the organizational activities that have gone on over the holiday season to help individuals and also programs in need. So first, let me start with the 560 families in Sterling Heights that were received assistance through the city's holiday assistance program. 24 local organizations as well as individuals participated through sponsorships of the local families. In the city, believe it or not, we're still getting a lot of calls from businesses wishing to contribute to the program, but it's pretty remarkable that we're able to help 560 families throughout the area. And I really wanted to commend our community relations department staff who work so hard coordinating the program. And also the annual Cops and Kids event was held on December 1st at the 16-mile DeQuinder Target. This yearly event is sponsored by Sterling Heights Fraternal Order of Police Lodge 118, Sterling Heights Police Department, and of course Target. It's a very successful program, and this year 30 officers volunteered their time to help each child spend $120 each on whatever they wanted. Retired Sterling Heights Police Sergeant Randy DePriest and Detective Margaret Wemple have been organizing this incredible program for the past 20 years, and they continue to do so this year. Over 1,000 people have been helped with this program, and we're really proud of it. The Department of Public Works also held their annual Ken Stempowski Food Drive. This year they surpassed last year's monetary donations of $432. With a total of $450 this year. They also deliver food to the Macomb Food Program, who distributes the food to 52 pantries throughout the area, and they're able to feed 500 people a day. Public Works is confident that they will also surpass last year's total of non-perishable food with an estimated weight of 1,000 pounds of food. They also had their yearly generous donation of 19 frozen turkeys from Threadcraft in Sterling Heights, and I would like to thank the DPW for their good work with this program, and also the community at large who contributes a lot to this program. And also this year we had a new program called Coats for Kids, which was a joint program started by Mayor Taylor, Utica Mayor Tom Dione, Shelby Superintendent Rick Stathakis, Utica Community Schools Superintendent Christine Johns, and Antolin General Manager Joseph Klowski. Already, the city of Sterling Heights alone has collected about 100 new coats and an assortment of hats and gloves and for the drive. The program also received a gift, an anonymous gift of $5,000, which will purchase 300 new coats. The coat drive will benefit Utica Community School students in need from kindergarten through sixth grade. So special thanks to Mayor Taylor and everyone who made this program so successful. And lastly, I wanted to highlight too that the City Council has contributed $700 to enhance the Upton House Museum in the holiday spirit. So look forward to improvements to the museum the next time you go through it on the second floor. So I think we can all take a lot of pride in what the organization has done over the holiday season. And lastly, on my report this evening, I wanted to talk just a little bit about our new police department drone, since it now is fully licensed and we have all of our drone pilots fully licensed and trained, and it's all ready to go. The FAA has signed off on our program, and I wanted to take just a minute to show you how well the technology can be deployed. So this is what the drone looks like. Not too terribly different than a normal drone you might see, other than all the decals and logos and so on. But you can see the images are incredibly clear. So this is a little more high-powered, more of a commercial unit, if you will, than something you might buy in the store, personal use. But what is really most amazing with this is the clarity of all the pictures from just about, you know, we can fly this anywhere in the city, actually. And so what it's going to be used for in large part is, you could imagine if we have a lost child, which periodically happens in our city. Sometimes we have individuals with medical disabilities, say Alzheimer's, for example, that may wander off, and we actually have to call in helicopters from either the state police or Oakland County. But now we're able to deploy this technology very quickly and get on top of these situations in no time at all. Just recently, we used the drone to document a very serious car crash, and also to locate a missing autistic 12-year-old child. So it's already paying dividends. In terms of the car crashes, what the drone does is hover over the accident and will take thousands of pictures very quickly, digitize the entire accident scene, and the evidence technicians and crash technicians can very quickly determine what caused the accident and so on and so forth. So we're really glad to have this technology, and special thanks to Captain Colleen Hopper, who spent a considerable amount of time researching the overall project, delivering the final product that will serve us very well, as you can see. So look forward to hearing more about our drone as it becomes fully operational. And Mayor, that concludes my report this evening.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Vanderpool. We have a couple of presentations, 3 to be exact, today. And our first presentation is to adopt a resolution honoring Judge Michael S. Massaroni upon his retirement for 3 decades of distinguished service to the 41A District Court. We have a presentation from his colleague at the District Court, Judge Kimberly Wiegand. Judge Wiegand, would you like to come up here and make a few opening remarks?
Good evening, Mayor, members of council, and city manager. It is my honor to be present before council tonight, along with Judge Zarowski and Magistrate Pytek, to request a resolution honoring Judge Michael Massaroni. In 1986, Michael Massaroni was selected by the judges at 41A District Court to serve as the magistrate. After serving in that position for over 10 years, he was elected as 41A District Court Judge. Judge Massaroni served with distinction for the next 22 years. During that tenure, Judge Massaroni was reelected 3 times without opposition. Judge Massaroni served at the time of tremendous growth along with the city at 41A District Court and contributed to the success while serving as its chief judge. After 3 decades of public service, Judge Michael Massaroni is retiring as the longest-serving jurist in the history of the court. He is retiring to devote his time to his family and to pursue his interest in travel and golf. At this time, it seems appropriate and fitting to honor Judge Michael Massaroni for devoting 3 decades of his professional life to 41A District Court. His legacy of dedication to the judicial system will long endure in the future. Judge Massaroni is present to my left with his wonderful wife, Sharon. So please take consideration of your motion. Thank
All
you.
right, thank you very much, Judge Wiegand, for that. We do have a suggested action, but I think before we get to that, what I'd like to do is I'll come down and present you with this plaque, Judge, and give you the opportunity to make some remarks if you'd like to. We'll leave that up to you, but I'll meet you down here. Congratulations, Judge. I'm going to read from this plaque, and it says, Judge Michael S. Massaroni, in appreciation and recognition for your loyal service and dedication to the people of Sterling Heights, Michigan, and the 41A District Court, the City of Sterling Heights thanks you for 33 years of distinguished public service. Best wishes for a happy retirement. Congratulations. You want to say some? Floor is yours.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, your council members. I've got all the judges here. Holy mackerel. This is quite an honor, really. And I just want to say, I've been here for a long time. And it's a great job, and I enjoyed serving the community. But it's time to go. It's time to move on. And as I say, though, it's been an absolute pleasure and an honor. I know so many people in the community. We've lived here for so long, Sharon and I, 36 years, something like that. I know the members of this council so well, most of them at least, and Ms. Koski was around when the council appointed me magistrate. I think she was like 16 or 17 at the time. But,
5 or 6.
5 or 6, I'm sorry. But in any event, no, it's been an absolute pleasure. I've had a wonderful career here. We love this city. I love what you're doing with this city. It just gets nicer and more fabulous every day. I'm gonna spend more time with my grandkids and travel and try to play golf. And I will say this: I did go ahead and hit the water park this summer. It was a big hit for the grandkids, and I'll be back. But in any event, thank you very much.
Thank you, Judge. Council, we have a resolution.
Mayor Taylor,
Mayor Pro Tem Sarowski.
resolved to appoint a resolution, to adopt a resolution honoring Judge Michael S. Massaroni upon his retirement for 3 decades of distinguished service to the 41A District Court.
Support. It's been moved and supported. Any discussion, Mrs.
Well,
Sarowski?
I would like to say, of course, I've known Mike for almost all those 22 years, and it's been a pleasure to get to know you, your wife. Your children are fantastic. You guys have really given a lot to this community, and it's been a pleasure knowing you and working alongside my husband with you. So I congratulate you on your retirement. And if you guys notice, he's got a little bit of a tan going on already. He's going to continue to keep that tan up, I'm sure. So congratulations, Mike.
Thank you, Mrs. Sarowski. Anyone else on council? If not, I would just like to close this presentation by, again, thanking you, Judge, for your 3 decades of service to our city. I think we see police officers and firefighters and employees and people who serve in this community. It's always great to see their record of longevity, and to be the longest-serving district court judge here in Sterling Heights is a testament to you and your dedication to the community. I don't think I ever had the pleasure of serving or of having a case or having a file in front of you. That's only because they told me I'm not allowed to. But I wish I would have at some point, and I wish you well in retirement and congratulate you on embarking on your new golf career. And I'm sure your family and your grandkids are going to be looking very much forward to spending that time with you. So that's all I have. Without any further discussion, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Congratulations. One more round of applause. Well, the resignations just keep on coming, and so this next presentation is to accept with regret the resignation of City Council Member Nate Shannon and adopt a resolution recognizing his dedicated public service to the city of Sterling Heights. We have a presentation from our city manager, Mark Vanderpool. Mr. Vanderpool.
Thank you, Mayor. As you indicated, Council Member Nate Shannon has been elected to the Michigan House of Representatives representing the 25th District. Consequently, Mr. Shannon has submitted his resignation from the office of City Council, and in accordance with City Charter, Section 4-08, the City Council must act upon the resignation. Before you this evening is a resolution thanking Councilman Shannon for a job well done. And on behalf of City Administration, I'd like to thank Councilman Shannon for his support and leadership on numerous city initiatives, not the least of which includes championing the city's Visioning 2030 plan and the subsequent Recreating Recreation initiative. The latter, which has been transformative for the city and something for which Councilman Shannon can be very proud to have played an integral role. We look forward to working with Representative-elect Shannon to advance municipal finance reform and reestablish promised revenue sharing that the state owes cities across the state, and also address the need for increased road funding, certainly near the top of the list, if not at the top of the list, and also stop the state from imposing unfunded mandates on cities, which we struggle with all the time, including in this lame duck session, and also stopping once and for all the erosion of local control that the state has taken from cities across the state. This has proven to be very problematic for cities, including Sterling Heights. And maybe even Representative-elect Shannon can end the future lame duck session when he gets in the legislature. We know we have an ambassador in the state legislature who understands local challenges and opportunities. And we look forward to a strong working relationship with Representative-elect Shannon for many years to come. So, Mayor, with this in mind, I respectfully request that the Mayor and City Council approve the resolution before you this evening.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Vanderpool. Do we have the option of just saying no? We can. We could just bypass all of this. Nate, I'm going to have you meet me down there just for a picture. You don't have to speak down there, but. I'm not going to read this whole thing to you, Nate, but this is a resolution honoring Nate Shannon for his dedicated public service to the city of Sterling Heights as a council member. Appointed in 2015, Nate has served for nearly 4 years as a member of the city council, and as Mark Vanderpool said, during that time, there were some very successful initiatives passed here in Sterling Heights, and I think we've seen tremendous growth. And so you played a major role in that, and because of that, our council thanks you for your contributions to the city of Sterling Heights. The businesses, the residents here appreciate your service, and we're looking forward to continued service on our behalf. Congratulations, Councilman. Council, we do have a suggested action here. Would like to make the motion?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Radke.
resolve to accept with regret the resignation by Nate Shannon from the office of City Council, adopt a resolution acknowledging his dedicated public service to the city of Sterling Heights.
Support. It's been moved and supported. Any discussion? Mr.
I
Radke.
just wanted to add that I just asked the city manager, the resignation is effective 12/31?
Correct.
Correct. And I guess I would say I wish you good luck up there. Fight for our city and fight for all cities because we are really getting shortchanged by the legislature in Michigan.
I agree.
Good luck, Nate.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Radke. Council who'd like to go next? Anyone?
Mayor Taylor?
Mrs. Zarko.
I've been composing a list of what I want Mr. Shannon to do for us when he's in Lansing, but certainly I'm going to miss, this is like the revolving seat. I mean, is it something I said? But, no, I have to wish you a lot of luck. I think it's courageous to actually want to be in the state legislature at this time. But here's my list, and I know I don't have to tell you about education because that's one of the reasons that you wanted to see some education reform. I would agree with, our city manager that we need to do something about revenue sharing. I mean, we voted on this, we're entitled to this money, and we get shortchanged year after year after year. The next thing is the fireworks law. I know that it might not ever be repealed, but there's a chance that maybe there could be a reduction in the number of days that you could use fireworks, so I would hope you would work on that for us. I know this is a touchy subject, but I'm gonna bring it up anyway, is term limits. Even the people that were in favor of term limits when this was voted on agreed that this is not working for us at the state level. And it's sad when you stop and think that the people with longevity in Lansing are the lobbyists, and there's something wrong with that equation. So if you can work on that, that'd be wonderful. I also agree with our city manager about the lame duck sections, the sessions, that if we can't actually eliminate them, that maybe you could pass a rule that says you need a 2/3 majority in order to get anything passed in a lame duck session. So by raising the majority percentage, maybe some of these things won't be happening at the last minute. And certainly last but not least is Act 51 of 1951 needs to be changed. So I wish you a lot of luck. We will be in touch on a regular basis. And I think that we have all residents in Sterling Heights have a friend in Lansing now. I think we've all observed what Mr. Shannon wants to do and can do, so we'll be there to support him because we know he's going to be working for us. So I wish you a lot of luck, and I'm not going to say goodbye because you will be hearing from me on a regular basis.
Thank you, Mrs. Zarko. Anyone else? Mayor Pro Tem Sarowski.
To follow Mrs. Ziarko is a little challenging because she hit everything. She hit all the very good points. But the one thing that I would like you to know is that we are definitely going to miss you, Nate. It's been a pleasure to work with you. It's been a pleasure to meet and get to know your family. Your children are adorable. They're going to grow up and now in the city of Lansing part-time, hopefully. They get to see some of my hometown. So we are going to miss you here working with us, but we know that you're still going to be working for us up in Lansing, and that's a wonderful asset for us, and we thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mrs. Schmidt.
Thank you. Nate, it's been great getting to know you and work with you. We've come a long way, and I appreciate that. I think with Mrs. Ziarko's list, Lori don't plan on seeing him much because she just made him really busy. But I wish you well in everything she wants done because they're all really important things. You know what my list is, and that's the school and the teachers and all the public workers. I think it's really important that we strive for those as well. And as everyone else has said, you're going to be there working for us, and we're truly going to miss you here, but best of luck to you there.
Thank you.
Mrs. Koski.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Nate, it's been a pleasure sitting next to you, and I hope it isn't something that I've done that's causing you to leave, but yes, it is a revolving seat. Ms. Sarko, I agree with you there. But Nate, I know you're going to do a fantastic job there in Lansing. I know you're going to represent us well. And as Ms. Sarko said, we will be contacting you to give you our additional wants and needs, and I'm sure that you'll do the best that you can. And yes, I've enjoyed serving with you, and I'm going to truly, truly miss your daughter. She is so precious.
What about Brody?
Yes, Brody too, but she is my girl. So you're going to have to promise us that you'll bring her back to visit. So good luck to you, and if there's anything that we can do to help you out there, you let us know.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Koski. Well, I think that about sums it up. Maybe we could call the question now, Madam Clerk.
Nice.
One last. All right, Nate. So normally I would let you go, but I'm gonna go before you. Nate, I want to thank you sincerely for the last, really, it's been about 5 or 6 years since we got to know each other and started to see your presence and involved in the city. You ran for council in 2013, and from that time until now, I think you've conducted yourself in an exemplary way. It's not easy to run as a challenger candidate in a council election and then get appointed by that same council after you've lost, because sometimes people like the job they have and might take it a little personally. But you conducted yourself well from 2013 on. You were involved in the ordinance that we passed in 2014 that I was very proud of, and I was proud of the way you handled that issue. And from the time you were appointed in 2015 until now, I think the city has seen really tremendous expansion and rebuilding. Mrs. Zarko and I talked about it one time, and something she said a lot was that we need to start reinvesting in our community, reinvesting in our city. And I think that that's really, when we started reinvesting in our city, it coincides with your appointment to the city council, and certainly your reelection both times has shown that the community really appreciates the work that you've done here on their behalf. And obviously they showed a lot of support and respect for you by sending you to Lansing to work on our behalf. So I consider you a friend, and I consider you a colleague, and we're going to remain friends and colleagues as we move forward. They've got a lot of ideas for you here. I'm not going to add anything to that list, but I will say that you've always been somebody who I can count on, somebody who I know has the best interests of every resident at heart, and you will work to make sure that that happens. You've got a beautiful family who supports you, and you're a very lucky man in that regard. We're lucky to have you, and we wish you obviously nothing but success, and your success is our success. Please remember where you came from with local government. We want you up there fighting for us, and we thank you for continuing to serve the residents of Sterling Heights. So Nate, that's all I've got. If you want to make any comments, I give you the floor now.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate everyone's comments, and the list, it's, as I said before, consider it done. No problem. Right, Henry? So before I go into my prepared remarks, I did want to just kind of highlight and congratulate Judge Massaroni. You actually swore me in, and so you were at my first meeting, and now you're at my last meeting, so it's very coincidental. So I found that interesting. So congratulations, Judge. So after the election on November 6th, I knew this day would be coming, and the old cliche of how things can be bittersweet will certainly apply to tonight. As many of you are aware, I was appointed to the City Council back in January of 2015, making my tenure here almost 4 years. These past 4 years have been unforgettable. My time on council has been one of the most exciting and rewarding experiences in my life. It is truly an honor to serve the residents of Sterling Heights, and I look forward to continuing to do so, just in a different capacity. There are many things to be proud of during my time on council. We have had record amounts of business investment. We continue to be one of the safest cities in America, and we are a model for financial stability around the state. But what I'm most proud of is the small role that I had in the Parks and Rec millage back in November of 2016, which gave the residents the opportunity to invest in our park system. This transformation will have a lasting impact on the future success of our community, and the sense of pride that I feel driving up Utica Road and marveling at the new Dodge Park and the future site of the community center will continue for the rest of my life. To my colleagues, thank you so much for teaching me about what it means to be a public servant. Many of you have been doing this for years, and your experience has helped me throughout my time, especially on the tough decisions that we've had to make over the past 4 years. All of you up here truly love this city, and that's what motivates you to work so hard on behalf of our residents, and we are blessed to have you. To the residents, thank you so much for allowing me to hold this seat and to do my best to help guide Sterling Heights into the future. Your trust is so important to me, and I'm honored to have earned it. To my family, thank you so much for all the sacrifices you have made to help me achieve my goals. I wouldn't have been able to accomplish anything without your love and support. I'm certainly sad to leave the city council, but I'm very excited to start this new chapter in my life and continue to work for our residents to improve education, fixing our roads, protecting our Great Lakes, and restoring local control. So thank you, everyone, for all the memories. I really do appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Shannon. Let's give Nate a big round of applause. Well, it's been moved and supported. We've all had a chance to discuss the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Nate. Best of luck to you, and congratulations again. But on to the next item of business, which is to try to figure out who's going to replace you. Big shoes to fill, obviously. So we are going to move on to the next presentation, our third presentation tonight. And these are presentations by residents requesting consideration for appointment to the vacant elective office of city council member. We have 13 applications, I believe, and I am just going to go through these in alphabetical order. And the first on the list is, well, actually, before I get to there, I'm going to just try to set some ground rules real quick. So I believe we're going to allow 3 minutes for these presentations. You don't have to use the entire 3 minutes, obviously, but you do get to have up to 3 minutes. Are we going to have the green, yellow, red like normal? So you're going to see green. For those of you who are not familiar with how this works, you'll have green for 2 minutes, yellow for a minute, and when your time is up, it'll turn red. There should be a timer up there for you to keep time, and just try to wrap up your comments as close to that red light as you possibly can, so I don't have to ask you to step down so we can get on to the next candidate. I don't think everyone's going to be here, but we will just have 3 minutes per candidate. You're encouraged to explain why you think you would be a great choice for the city council. This is not going to be an interview unless the council agrees to have some sort of question and answer, but as of right now, there is not going to be any opportunity for back and forth between the council members and the applicant. So if you could just come up and give your presentation, and that's going to be it. So those are the ground rules, pretty simple. We'll start with Mr. Nicholas Cavalli.
Hi, Nick Cavalli, Sterling Heights. I'm a 21-year resident of the city, and I'm requesting consideration for an appointment to the soon-to-be vacant city council seat. I would like to, as always, thank you guys for the opportunity to come up here and speak in front of you. Today, I'm speaking on my own behalf rather than the behalf of anybody else. I would first like to congratulate Councilman and Representative-elect Shannon. You had a well-deserved victory in November, and I am very, very proud of you and everything that you've done. I look out in the crowd today, I see some very qualified candidates. It's some stiff competition, but I'd be remiss in my duties if I didn't come up here and at least attempt to persuade you guys towards my support. I've been an active member of the community basically my whole life. I've lived here for 21 years. I've been involved in multiple parts of the community. I was an active member of the Parks and Recreation Department growing up as a kid in Sterling Heights. Since then, I've become involved in city-level politics, starting in my junior year of high school in 2014, and I've slowly become more and more involved. I ran for Sterling Heights City Council in 2017. I started that campaign late. It was a grassroots campaign, and I did not receive any money from any special interests, and I refuse to take money from special interests now and forever, including my 2019 run, which I will get to. Through that, my historical background, I was appointed to the Historical Commission, so I do have to thank you guys for the additional money for the Upton House. I'm not here to be a politician. I'm not here to play part in party politics. I am an active member of a party, but their decisions, the decisions of the members of that party that I meet with, have absolutely nothing to do with my own decision-making. I'm here to be a civil servant. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to follow in the footsteps of my father, who's been a civil servant for over 30 years of his life. I am here simply to represent the will of the people of the city. Never will my voice be louder than theirs, and never will a special interest have my ear. So I would like to thank you all for the possibility to come up and speak, and I would just like to throw out there that I've been here for just about every city council meeting for the last 6 months. I've been involved in city level politics. I'm not just showing up now because there's a vacancy available. And thank you guys so much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Cavalli. Next up is Jasmine Early.
Good evening, Mayor Taylor, members of City Council, Mr. Vanderpool, and audience. I'm Jasmine Early. This is the third time that I'm here for an appointment for a vacancy for our City Council. As a Sterling Heights resident for many years, I know the needs and expectations of our residents. I'm an architect, language teacher, a hardworking community leader, the voice for residents, fighter against wasteful tax increases, corruption, and injustice. In a diverse city like Sterling Heights, the residents see my experience, education, and involvement with political affairs as something that the public appreciate. My appointment for this position, as a resident stated, will show, quote, some inclusiveness, some continued improvement because we all need it, end of quote. My perseverance, commitment, and genuine care for this city is a proven record of my desire to serve and help our city to move forward. Innovating living is our city slogan. We need to do this in concert with our multicultural community. As an immigrant and a naturalized citizen, and a natural voice for this community. Not only do I have experience in networking at the city and county level, but because my campaigns for city council and state representative, I have developed a professional relationship at the state that will benefit our city. I'm qualified to serve as a bridge between local, county, and state officials. My vision for Sterling Heights is to collaborate with the city council and administration to make our city a better place to live, a city where the hard work and experience of this generation will encourage the next generation to grow as responsible stewards of our city. As a proactive leader and a long-time volunteer, I will not only work to maintain the health of our city, but will better its health on the fronts of crime, the opioid crisis, drug prevention, infrastructure, services for seniors and veterans, the youth, everybody. I represent diversity, unity, leadership, and genuine concern for our residents. I love this city, and I know that we need a balance. I'm already collecting signatures for our next election, as you already know. Please consider me choosing for this representation for the residents. More than 12,900 Sterling Heights residents voted for me in the state election. I hope that you consider that and for the residents to vote for me in November election. Thank you, and have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Lastly, I had a question. Is that true that you are going to appoint Henry Yanes for this position? Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Mrs. Early. The next on our list is Amanda Elsey. I don't think I see Amanda in the audience tonight. After Amanda is Dennis Hansinger. Is Dennis here? Mr. Hansinger.
Members of City Council, good evening. I'm here to apply for this position that's opened. I believe you all have resume that I sent out. And rather than take up a lot of time on that and repeat the things that I've already said, if you have any questions, I would certainly take any questions right now. I've been involved in the community for 38 years. I've never been on a board in the city, but I've been involved in a lot of things that had to do with the city and with our neighborhoods. My neighborhood in particular has had a few issues over the years, but as a neighborhood, we were able to resolve those issues, and I just totally appreciate the way this city runs. It's been amazing to me. When we moved here 38 years ago, we weren't very far away from township administration, I think about 8 years. And the things that have developed since then are just, they're amazing. This last thing with the park along Utica Road, it's a mind blower. It's good for all of us, every citizen in this community. It's good for property values, it's good for business, it's good for everything that's going on. So thanks for that. Any questions of me?
Well, like I said, I think we're going to just try to avoid question and answers, but, you know, you've got a minute or so left at least, and if you want to just talk about why you're interested in the position and what you think you'd be able to bring to it, we'd certainly appreciate those sorts of comments.
Yes, the reason that I'm interested in this at this point in time is I'm a retiree at this point. I was in business in Sterling Heights. Utica actually was my base, but I did a lot of business with Sterling Heights residents and businesses. And it's time to give back a little bit. I got a lot from Sterling Heights and from the community that I did business with. I volunteer a little bit, and I'm looking at different things that I want to volunteer for, and I'm looking at more volunteer opportunities in the city. I do some volunteer with the Golf Association of Michigan. I'm a rules official for them, tournament official. I've been involved in that for about 5 or 6 years. Has nothing to do with city council, but it's part of my interest, and I enjoy that. I enjoy volunteering where people understand that I'm here not for me, but to get the cause moving, whatever that might be. If there's something on the city council that is presented to the city council that has issues that need to be discussed, after 40 years in business, there's one thing I learned. I know how to listen. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Hansinger. Next is Janine Lambert. Is Janine Lambert here tonight? Move on. Gary Lusk. I don't see Mr. Lusk in the audience. Anthony Molka. Anthony here today. Deborah Skupny.
Good evening, Mayor and everyone. My name is Deborah Skupny. I grew up in Sterling Heights. I graduated from Henry Ford High School. Then I moved away, got married, had a family. Now we moved back to Sterling Heights. I've been here for over a year and a half now. I love the city. I love to become involved. I come to every outside event. I love the outdoors. I walk Dodge Park and the trails, beautiful. Everything you've done to the city to expand it, to change, has been wonderful. I'm looking forward to the community center. What I would do if I am elected as official here, as a councilwoman, I would like to become involved with the disabled for our community, because I am now permanently disabled, but I'm still capable. I have a mind, I have suggestions and ideas that I can bring to the council. And I would like to become involved in it and improve, nothing but improve more in the city. It's just a wonderful place to raise a family, to live, and we have such a diversity around here, everything you look for. But it is a beautiful city. I know a lot of people in Sterling Heights. I almost said where I came from, but in Sterling Heights, family and relatives that are here and have stayed here for years and generations. And I would love to work with all of you. I've worked in the public for years, nothing but public. I have served in libraries, both public libraries, medical libraries, and I used to be a nurse. So I do have knowledge, input, and I would be able to work with everybody. And I hope you would work with me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Skupny, for your presentation. We had some late arriving resumes, and they're not in alphabetical order, so I'm going to go back. Is Eric Carlson here? Okay, come on up, Mr. Carlson. Sorry for skipping you earlier, but you would have been first, so maybe I did you a benefit. You got to see the competition first. All right, go ahead.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. I'm interested in this position to give back, but even prior to that, I was an adolescent. I grew up in Sterling Heights. My mother and stepfather purchased a house in 1992 at 14 Van Dyke, and I had there until I went away to college in 1999. So I got to see that portion of the city. And then I recently, I was married in 2011. Well, I met my wife, my current wife, in 2011. We were married in 2012, but she lives in Sterling Heights, and we've been residents there ever since. I have a 12-year-old stepdaughter who goes to Trinity Lutheran, and I also have 5-year-old natural triplets. 2 of the boys are in Plumbrook, Pohai, so that the Plumbrook school system has just been amazing. So I give them a lot of props. And then both the girls, the other girl is in Trinity Lutheran as well. But for my my interest in this, I'm a licensed engineer, and I do a lot of stuff for a lot of different companies, but that's all for-profit work. And I think giving back to the community would be extremely beneficial and something very rewarding. And something I'm quite interested in. And as for my vision, I love what has been transpired in the city, in the current vision, and I would just like to be a part of that, doing it in the most sustainable way possible as we move forward to the future, which is going to require a lot more sustainability than I believe what we're currently operating with. And that's all. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Carlson. Thank you for your presentation. Next, I'm going to go to Jonathan Matthews. Is Jonathan Matthews here? Mr. Matthews, come on up.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. Thank you, council members, mayor. I came here because I wanted to help the community, and I thought maybe adding my voice to this body could be a way to do it. When I was a child, my father's side of my family lived in Sterling Heights, and when I came to my grandfather's house, my uncle's house, my aunt's houses, that really felt like home to me. My mother's side was much smaller, so, it also feels like family, but it was very different. When they separated when I was a teenager, I kind of lost that. A year and a half ago, I bought a house here, and it is a beautiful place. It's right by, James Nelson Park. I go for walks in there. I've seen deer and everything. It's beautiful. That money that's been put back into the Parks and Rec, really, I've gotten to see that firsthand. It's beautiful. Now, I'm a teacher by trade, and my understanding is Nate Shannon was in L'Anse Creuse as well, and that is actually, believe it or not, where I went to school, so that's quite the coincidence there. And one of the things I thought that maybe could happen, were I be so fortunate to be appointed to this body, is to coordinate a lot of programs between the young and the old. I work in the Troy School District, and in the high school there, we're forging a program right now with Oakmont to have the students there interact with the seniors. A lot of the seniors sometimes have to deal with loneliness in the older ages, and they have a lot of wisdom that they can give to the younger generations as well. It really is just a wonderful opportunity that we're going ahead with in the school district, and I thought that that could be something that perhaps I could assist with here in this body. There's a lot of other things, too, that are capable of being done in Sterling Heights, but right now this is a very safe city, and I would love to keep it that way. I just had my family over for our cookie exchange day on Sunday, and when we went out to lunch after we were done, I forgot to lock the door and, shut the big sturdy door in the front, and I didn't even worry about it when we were out. And they said, "Aren't you worried? Don't you need to go home and shut the door?" I said, "No." And I really thought to myself then, I could leave the house with the door unlocked, and it was just like when I was a kid, and I wouldn't have to worry about it. So I think you should be proud of yourselves here, and I wouldn't at all want to disrupt that. I would just want to look for ways to improve upon that. As a teacher, I would really focus on improving the educational system by looking for opportunities with which students could connect in the community. Biology classes, like we have in Troy, really emphasize going out into the field, into the parks, and utilizing those resources. I'd really like to see that happen a lot here, because I go through the park system here, and it is beautiful. Why not take a biology class out there and have them take advantage of their environment? I think that would be a really great opportunity. And lastly, as a teacher, I have a lot of experience with unfunded mandates and lack of local control, so I think I could deal with those headaches as well as anybody. Thank you very, very much for your time.
All right, thank you very much, sir. Appreciate that. Next, I am going to go to Charles Infantino. Is Charles here tonight? I didn't think so. All right, then back to Matthew Smith. Matthew Smith, going once. And then last but not least, Henry Yanez. Henry.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council. You went from S to Y pretty quick. I wasn't quite prepared. I don't have any prepared remarks, but just to give you a little background about me, I think many of you know me personally. A resident of Sterling Heights, obviously, for the last 10 years, but I was also a city employee for 18 years working for the Sterling Heights Fire Department. And in 2012, I was elected to the state legislature representing the people of the 25th district, which is the eastern half of Sterling Heights and the city of Warren. During that time, I learned a lot about city government through the state legislature, and all the problems that you talked about were laid upon my desk on a regular basis. But one of the things I felt that I really needed to do, and I got out of working at the fire department when I first got elected, was making sure that I reached out to each and every single official within my district. So I reached out to local elected officials, the city manager, the mayor of Warren, school officials, just to find out what's on their mind and how I could be of help in the city, in the state legislature. I also held many coffee hours talking to citizens one-on-one. I knocked a lot of doors, not only during election years, but non-election years, reaching out to individuals to finding out what's on their mind as well, because I think that's really important for any elected official, is to make sure that we have that one-on-one conversation with the people that are paying the taxes. While I was up in Lansing, I served on many different committees. I served on the Commerce Committee, where I first learned the concept of talent in place. Sterling Heights, the city of Sterling Heights, is a shining example of the idea of creating place and attracting talent and attracting businesses. And I'm very excited to possibly be a part of that. I also, for the last 4 years, I served on the Appropriations Committee, where I learned to work with budgets, and some of my subcommittees were working with Department of Health and Human Services, Veterans Affairs, and community colleges. So I have a wide and diverse background. I have a desire to serve my community, to continue to serve my community, as I have for many years, and I'd be honored to serve on this board or this council as well, so I appreciate the consideration. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Yanez, and thank you to all of the prospective applicants who came here to make your presentations. We appreciate your time and the energy you put into your applications. The City Council has an important job to do, and we are going to take a couple of weeks over the holidays, and we intend on making an appointment at the first meeting in January. So please stay tuned, and thank you again for your presentations tonight. Very informative, and certainly we're better off having heard them. Moving on, next item on our agenda tonight is an ordinance introduction. This is, the first one is to introduce the First Amendment to the Appropriations Ordinance for the 2018-19 fiscal year. We have a presentation from our Finance and Budget Director, Jennifer Varney. Mrs. Varney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council, Mr. Vanderpool, and Mr. Koszubski. I'm here tonight to introduce the First Amendment to the Appropriations Ordinance for 2018-19. As you know, the budget is normally amended twice per year, once in December and once toward the end of the fiscal year. This amendment primarily carries forward unspent funding from the prior year for projects that have already been approved and not completed. And it also recognizes new grants and items that have come before council since the budget was adopted. In the general fund, the budget now contributes $941,000 to fund balance reserved. And this is a decrease of about $200,000 from the original budget. And again, we have unspent prior year encumbrances. We also had an increased costs on our new Macomb County dispatch contract and purchases approved by City Council subsequent to the budget adoption. And the budget for other city funds was adjusted by about $10 million. And however, again, this is primarily the carry forward of funds from previously approved projects. $7.3 million is in the roads fund for carry forward of projects such as Canal Road, DeQuinder, Metro Parkway, and 17 Mile. And $2 million is to reappropriate unspent capital projects funds, including the city sidewalk gap and repair programs. And the amendment also includes capital items approved since the budget was adopted. Mr. Mayor, this is the first reading of this ordinance, which is scheduled for adoption at the January 2nd meeting.
All right, thank you very much. Mrs. Varney, is there anyone in the audience who'd like to speak on this item? If not, council, we need a motion.
Mayor Taylor,
Mrs. Schmidt.
resolve to introduce the First Amendment to the Appropriations Ordinance for the 2018-19 fiscal year.
Support.
Been moved and supported. Any discussion, Mrs. Schmidt?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor Taylor. Just want to say it's nice to still be putting money in the bank, and good job.
Mrs. Zarko, anything? Council, anyone else? No further discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mrs. Varney. Next is an ordinance adoption to consider adoption of an ordinance amending Chapter 35 of the City Code to conform existing local marijuana regulations to the Michigan Regulation and Taxation of Marijuana Act of 2018 as an emergency action pursuant to Chapter 6, Section 6.04B of the City Charter. We have a presentation from our Assistant City Attorney, Don Denault. Mr. Denault.
Mayor, members of council, Mr. Vanderpool, and everyone else in attendance and watching at home. Well, I'm back to talk about recreational marijuana again. I know how excited you must be to see my name on the agenda. But this was an important ordinance amendment that we needed to get to you as soon as we could. And as you can imagine, if you've looked at all at the state law, it's a very complicated law. It was not written very well, and there are a lot of ambiguities in it. So we have spent diligently the last month or so after its adoption and even beforehand trying to interpret all of that so that we don't miss anything. And I think we can sincerely say that we are leading the way in that regard, that there are many municipal attorneys still trying to catch up in understanding what this law actually does and says. So we're not here to talk about business facilities, marijuana establishments tonight. That's a subject for another night, as we all know. Tonight we're here to talk more about the law enforcement side. What did the new law do? The voters, when they voted on this, all they were told on the ballot itself was that they were voting to allow the personal possession and use of marijuana by persons 21 years of age or older. They were voting on the provision for the lawful cultivation and sale of marijuana and industrial hemp by persons 21 years of age or older, and to permit the taxation of revenue that is derived from any commercial marijuana facilities that may come into existence. That's it. So unless you actually looked at the statutory language that was drafted, you wouldn't know about all the nuances that we've tried to capture here tonight for you in this new ordinance. And lest I forget, we are asking you to adopt it as an emergency ordinance in the sense that until we have it in place, law enforcement can't use it. And we'd rather not wait until January for that to occur. So let's talk a little bit about, and I want to warn you, I could talk for hours. I'm not going to. I'll talk for about 5 minutes and then certainly answer as many questions as you have. But this is a lengthy conversation, and the gist of it is this. In the statute, there are a number of provisions that say things like, except as provided in A, B, C, H, and G, then here's your penalties. But they don't tell you what happens if you commit A, B, C, G, H, or whichever letters I just said. There's another section, an entire section, with a whole list of things where it says this act does not authorize you to do. And then there's a whole list. Things like using butane extraction to potentially blow up your house. Things like possessing marijuana at school. Things like smoking marijuana as a passenger in a motor vehicle. This act does not authorize those things, is all it tells us. So what we've tried to do tonight with this ordinance is capture those things as well as capturing the actual penalties that the actual law provides for. What are those penalties? Primarily they are civil infraction penalties for people under 21 who possess marijuana, first and second offenses, and it does escalate to a misdemeanor at certain points for certain types of offenses, but for the most part, everything's a civil infraction now if you exceed the rules that the law has provided, if you're under 21. And if you are over 21, if you exceed the amounts that the law has provided, which in the law are 2.5 ounces of marijuana that you may possess at any given time, or up to, I believe it's 10 ounces or 15 ounces of concentrate. So those things you may possess as an adult. You may also cultivate 12 plants in your personal residence. That is specifically in this statute. There is nothing we can do to undo that and get that out of the homes in Sterling Heights or elsewhere. But it can only be 12 plants at least, which is a good thing. And one of the questions law enforcement has already had for us is, does that mean if I have 3 people living in the house, like each of them can have 12? And the answer is no, they cannot. It is one set of 12 plants per house. That is the maximum limitation under that one. But those are the examples of exactly what the law has penalized. Again, under 21 possession in different levels, over 21 possessing too much or cultivating too many plants. And beyond that, we're left as municipalities to figure out how to deal with the other things, the gaps as I call them, that were left in the law. What does that mean for law enforcement? Well, what that means, as I've explained to people that want to listen and want to hear about this interesting stuff, is that let's say a police officer pulls over a car of individuals. There's 3 or 4 of them in the car, and he can see clearly that one of the passengers in the back seat is smoking marijuana in the car. The conversation would go something like this right now under state law and without an ordinance. Sir or ma'am, do you realize that the new law doesn't authorize you to smoke marijuana in the car as a passenger? No, officer, I didn't realize that. Well, okay, well now you're educated. Have a great night. And he has to let them go. There's no penalty, there's no consequence for that. That applies to everything in that list of things I just mentioned that are not authorized by the new law. So we've covered that here. We've given the law enforcement officers in our city the tools to be able to address those issues, whether it be consuming as a driver, whether it be possessing at school or on a school bus, whether it be smoking as a passenger, whether it be transferring marijuana to somebody under the age of 21. All of those things are included in here, and rather than get into any more nuances and details, I will wrap that up and answer any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Denault. I think we'll go to the audience first, and then we'll come back if we have questions during deliberation. Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to speak on this item? Mr. McGregor?
While we're here, I didn't realize we'd be doing something like this today, so that kind of throws me off. I was going to bring this up during communications from citizens, but hopefully it pertains to the amendment. So anyways, I visited the city clerk's office to see if there's anything pertaining to filing a petition to bring, because in the Marijuana Regulation Taxation Act, it allows citizens to petition for the amount of marijuana establishments within the city, and I was just curious where I'd get those forms from.
This is more like communications from citizens. This topic right now is the ordinance adoption as it's presented. So
right.
That would be, we'll answer that question under communications from citizens.
Okay.
And the clerk's, I'm sure, taking it down, and we'll help you with that. But let's focus right now on this ordinance. If we
Works for me. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Mr. McGregor. Mrs. Early.
Well, I want to say thank you, Mr. Denault, for bringing this issue and for working with the law enforcement. I already had some conversations about it, and I like that we are leading the way. We always want to do it in Sterling Heights. My question will be, and this afternoon I was thinking, how in this ordinance are we considering that kids, teenagers, may be buying candies or any product that may have marijuana? How are we doing in that part? Is that also included in this ordinance that you are trying to bring up? We need to make sure that the law enforcement knows also how to deal with this issue. How we are going, as parents, how are we going to make sure those candies are not just out there and they may be able to get it? Thank you.
Anyone else on this item? If not, council, we need a motion.
Mayor Taylor.
Mrs. Zarko.
Resolved to adopt the ordinance amending Chapter 35 of the City Code to conform existing local marijuana regulations to the Michigan Regulation and Taxation of Marijuana Act of 2018 as an emergency action pursuant to Chapter 6, Section 6.04B of the city charter.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Is there any discussion, Mrs. Zarko?
I think I understand what we're trying to do here, but my first question is because we are adopting this without having an introduction, does this mean we need a 5-vote majority in order for it to pass? That's my first question.
Mr. Koszybski.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, it does.
Okay, thank you. I think Mr. Denault explains it, that we're putting some tools in the toolbox for law enforcement, and certainly right now, that's what we need. And I'm going to follow the recommendation of our city attorneys, as well as helping law enforcement take care of this issue right now. So that's all I have to say.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Zarko. Mrs. Schmidt, was it?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yes, I'm Mrs. Schmidt.
Well, sorry, I didn't write down who supported the motion and.
I'm teasing. Through the chair to Mr. Denault. Interesting, when I'm reading through this section 35-65A, item F, cultivating marijuana plants if the plants are visible from a public place without the use of binoculars, aircraft, or other optical aids, or outside of an enclosed area equipped with locks or other functioning security devices that restrict access to the area. This means no outside grows, correct?
Mr.
Like,
Denault.
no backyard grows.
That is correct.
Okay.
In fact, it's something I've already put into my training materials for the police department. It's a question we've already anticipated. It's a very good question. The act is a little bit schizophrenic on the way it talks about doing things within the curtilage of a residence. Then it talks about how you can only cultivate 12 plants, but they have to be in your residence. But the way it's worded leaves a little bit of ambiguity. So to clear that up, obviously we've analyzed all of the sections and put some training materials together indicating that there can be no exterior or outdoor growing.
I don't think that was clear in the law that, I mean, a lot of things weren't clear, obviously, in the law that passed, but that one just stuck out to me because, you know, I'm thinking all these people are thinking, oh, summer's coming, the garden, you know, I'm going to put my 12 plants out there. So that is not allowed. And if that should be an issue, if a neighbor happens to say, hey, my neighbor is, you know, what's the consequence for that?
In this particular instance, it would be a misdemeanor violation, and the marijuana plants could be forfeited and seized by the police department.
Okay, thank you. I have nothing further.
Council, anyone else?
Mr. Mayor.
Mrs. Koski.
Through the chair to Mr. Denault, what if someone makes some brownies and gives them to someone under 21? How is that addressed in here?
We have made that a misdemeanor to provide marijuana or marijuana derivatives, extracts, et cetera, any marijuana products to a person under the age of 21, because again, the act left that open. That was one of the gaps that they left in the act that they just didn't cover.
So that is covered under,
We have covered it now, yes. It's,
because I believe that was the question that was asked this evening.
if I had to cite you chapter and verse, it would be subsection A2, that any transfer of marijuana or marijuana accessories to a person under the age of 21.
Okay, so we've got that covered. That was it.
Okay.
Thanks.
Mr. Radke.
Mr. Denault, to the chair to Mr. Denault. I just attended a training by the Michigan Municipal League on the new marijuana law and the ambiguities in the law and everything. And they disagreed with your analysis on the plants. They said that plants could be cumulative with residents. I'm wondering if we could get in touch with the MML and see if we could straighten it out, 'cause I'd hate to see us pass an ordinance that was then found, you know, they have their own lawyers over there, and they're not giving us advice, but so that as they understand the law, it is a cumulative requirement. That's what I was curious about.
Well, I would love to set them straight, Mr. Radke.
That sounds great to me. And then, secondary, I guess, to Mrs. Schmidt's question, if it was in an enclosed, locked area, does that mean fully enclosed? It has to have a ceiling on it, or could it just be a fenced-in area that was blocked out so you couldn't see it through the street?
That's correct. It can't be seen from any public vantage point without the aid of technology, basically.
Okay, that's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Anyone else? Mrs. Sarowski?
No,
Mr. Shannon, anything? Okay, a couple of questions. I want to go to 35, let me pull it up here.
What page?
3565A.
Is there a page in the packet?
Yeah, I'm getting there,
Oh, sorry.
Mr. Radke. Page 80, it looks like. So, this is possession, possession and use of marijuana, prohibitions, penalties. A person shall not, and then there's a list of 10, 12 things here. All right, number 5 is consume marijuana in a public place. Can you explain why we need, I know you did in your opening, but explain it to me a little bit more. Why is it that the law that was passed, because I thought the law that was passed said you can't smoke in a public place. Why is it that we need to codify this into our ordinance?
Sure. So the law that was passed does not come out and quite say that, Mr. Mayor. It says, this act does not authorize the consumption of marijuana in a public place. So we have included it in our ordinance as a ban, that it's prohibited for you to consume marijuana in a public place. And we've separated that out from smoking marijuana, which the law distinguishes, when a person who owns or manages the property prohibits you from doing that.
Okay. That's another one. So we're prohibiting people from smoking marijuana. We're prohibited by the person who owns, occupies, or manages the property. Why, it seems redundant. Why would I, if I don't permit you to smoke cigarettes or marijuana in my house, why do we need an ordinance? Why do we need a law telling people that? Isn't that kind of redundant?
No, it actually isn't. It really is a law enforcement tool. So let's say a landlord has a problem with somebody. Obviously, they could evict. But let's say we're in a less of a lessee-lessor relationship where I own or manage, let's say, a restaurant or some other type of property, and somebody just won't listen to me when I tell them they can't do that. They can use law enforcement then at this point to use our ordinance, which mirrors the state law language, to say that thou shalt not or thou may not smoke marijuana because the person who owns the property has prohibited you from doing so.
What does manage the property mean in this ordinance?
Well, that's the exact language from the state law. If I had to interpret that off the cuff, I would say it's a property management agent or perhaps even a restaurant manager.
What if it's a condominium? I live in a condominium and we have a property management company that manages the property by collecting the association dues and, or if I live in a detached condominium and we have a homeowners association and the management company says we're not going to permit smoking marijuana. Does that cover my right to smoke marijuana in my own house?
I would argue not. I would argue that the management of those types of entities only covers common areas or public places.
I'm concerned though, because that's what it says. Somebody who manages property. And by somebody who's managing property is, a property manager. I have a homeowners association. We have a property manager. That company manages the property. And if the board votes to prohibit the use of marijuana in the neighborhood, it doesn't seem right. And by this ordinance, it seems to me that somebody could be prosecuted by it. So that's concerning to me.
Well, I think to answer, to assuage that concern, Mr. Mayor, I think we would take the position that the property management or the homeowners association isn't managing the interior of your home. They're managing the grounds, the exterior, the public places, the common elements of the association.
Okay. Smoking marijuana within the passenger area of a vehicle upon a public way. What's the rationale behind that?
We believe, without knowing exactly how this melting pot of laws came together into one, that was intended to prevent secondhand marijuana effects on a driver. So if the vehicle's on a public roadway, the drafters thought it was prudent to say that if you're in a car with a driver, you shouldn't be smoking it because there could be a secondhand effect on the driver while they're operating that vehicle.
All right, so the law that was passed already says that you can't, it's not authorized.
This act does not authorize you to smoke marijuana as a passenger.
But it doesn't provide any
clarity, no.
Okay. All right, those are all the questions I have. Anyone else, anything else, council? Going once?
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Radke.
The MML interpreted the smoking in the passenger area for the same reason, that it would possibly intoxicate the driver.
Sure, understood, makes sense. Okay, without any further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you,
Duval.
Mr. Mayor. And Mr. Shannon, if you want any help with the legislature trying to fix this for state troopers and county sheriffs, give me a call.
Okay, yeah. Vice versa.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Denault. We'll move on to the next item on our agenda tonight, which is the consent agenda. Is there anyone who wishes to speak on the consent agenda? If not, council, we need a motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Mrs. Koski.
move to approve the consent agenda.
Support.
It's been moved and supported with no discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item on our agenda is to consider appointments to the City of Sterling Heights boards and commissions. Is there anyone who'd like to speak on this item? If not, council, we have 3 appointments to make today. The first 2 are a new board, the Water System Advisory Council. These are open appointments. The power of appointment rests with the city council, and these are to a term ending 12/31/2020. Is there anyone who would like to make an appointment to the Water System Advisory Council? Going once, going twice. We do have 2 individuals who have applied and are Mr. Vanderpool. Are these individuals that the administration can weigh in on in any regard?
Thank you, Mayor. I can say that they were recommended by city administration in terms of background, but the city clerk might be able to elaborate.
Okay, well, there are two individuals who have requested appointment, Richard Giltz and Joseph Neiman. Is there anyone who'd like to make the motion for those 2?
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Shannon?
Can I do them both at the same time?
Yes.
Okay. Resolve to appoint, and I gotta get back to, Richard Giltz and Joseph Neiman to the Water System Advisory Council to a term ending December 31st, 2020, subject to the appointee meeting the qualifications set forth in Charter Section 4.03 and taking the oath of office within 2 weeks.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Is there any discussion on this item? With no discussion, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next is the Housing Commission. 1 vacancy. Sean Taylor is requesting reappointment. Is there anyone who'd like to make that motion?
Mayor Taylor,
Mrs. Schmidt.
resolve to appoint Sean Taylor to the Housing Commission to a term ending December 31st, 2023, subject to the appointee meeting the qualifications set forth in Charter 4.03 and taking the oath of office within 2 weeks.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Is there any discussion? With no discussion, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. That concludes that portion of our agenda. We'll move on to communications from citizens. Mr. McGregor, come on up. This is for anyone who'd like to speak on any item not on tonight's agenda.
Right back to it. All right, again from earlier, it's just, so I went to the city clerk's office to see if they had any material as to, like, I assumed it would be similar to a nominating petition, because the nominating petition, the city provides, you know, you know, where they sign, where their address goes, all that fun stuff. And, but they don't have anything yet. I was curious if I could get an update as to when they plan on getting something comparable to that. And I guess that brings me to my next issue. So there was a poll on the Sterling Heights Facebook page about what the city council should do in the future when appointing a member to council. And I think the actual fix is, and to my understanding, it can only be done by, a petition from the citizens, which our city doesn't have yet. To take these terms from 2 years to 4 years, and that way, instead of an appointment, and I do trust all your decision-making, that's why you guys get elected, but from 2 years to 4 years, that way, if there is a resignation within the first 2 years, we can have an emergency election for the vacant seat. I think that's the best way to solve the issue. And I think that, like I said, I think the only way to change your guys' terms is through a petition done by the citizens. So there's that. And I just wanted to make a quick mention the fact that I saw that Gary Lusk applied for the position, and he was the seventh vote getter. And I think it's a best practice for you guys to pick him. That being said, I have my own personal preference and stuff, but if he lost by 12 votes in the last election. 12?
20.
20?
Mike.
20 votes.
Michael's keeping track.
Thanks, Mike. He lost by 20 votes in the last election, and and I'm not saying that if you were to have an emergency election right now, someone else wouldn't win that seat over him. But I think it's the best policy to, if he applied for the application, if he didn't say, I don't want the seat, then you guys should be giving him the seat. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. McGregor. Anyone else under communications? Mr. Cavalli?
Alrighty, so just in general, I know I briefly went over this, but I wanted to say thank you guys so much for the extra money for the Upton House, not just as a member of the Historical Commission, but as a lover of the preservation of local history. This was much needed, and no offense to my parents who were sitting back there, but this is the best Christmas present I could have asked for. So thank you guys very much for the extra money. That's going to help us out a lot.
Thank you, Mr. Cavalli. Anyone else under communications from citizens? If not, yes, you, sir. Mr. Matthews, right?
Yes. Good memory, thank you. Like I had said before, our school district is forging bonds with Oakmont, the Sterling and the Manor here, with the older citizens there to try and forge a collaboration where you can have that cross-generational transfer of ideas. Now, we were looking around for more information about places around the city, and my grandmother, who lives just on the other side in Royal Oak, she was telling me about all these places over there, and I'm like, how did you know about all these? Because I was looking all over for information, and it turns out that, of people who are a bit more in their wiser years, they sometimes are a bit harder to find online and calling them up and everything. So if you know, and I understand here it says no response shall be made to any communication from a citizen until everybody has been permitted to speak, I was just going to ask for your wisdom, being the members of the council that you are, if you have any of those organizations you could provide the names of to me so I can get our students in touch with them to forge those partnerships, I will be greatly appreciative of it. That's all I came to ask.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Jefferson?
Charles Jefferson, Sterling Heights. Boy, first things first. Mr. Racky, do you hear that? That is the ratings just about to go up on this one, because I am back. Yes, indeed. So let's get to it. Mr. Vanderpool up there on North Van Dyke. At certain times of day, there's a problem, and it needs to be fixed. That's coming southbound on Van Dyke when you're trying to turn on Riverland and, not Riverland, but Canal and Clinton River there, making a left-hand turn. It backs up, forcing the traffic into Hall Road and causing a problem there on Van Dyke. That needs to be looked into with your people there. Next, Mayor Taylor. Did you see what happened to Megan Kelly? Did you see what happened to Roseanne Barr? Did you see what happened to that police officer down in Detroit that said, tonight I'm done with putting the zoo animals to jail? Only in 2018, under your racist leadership, is that allowed to happen. And everybody in this room know what I'm talking about. It don't look like that. You know what I'm talking about.
I have no idea.
Yeah, that Garrity situation. Okay? So don't put it in like you don't know. You knew. Now, number 3, Mayor Taylor, how are you going to be the mayor of Sterling Heights and the state representative? Because everybody knows Nate Shannon don't talk without you telling them what to say. Nate, I got no problem with you. I do. But your game, I like it. You found a way to get a raise and to keep stealing money from people. You have never.
You're out of order. You cannot accuse him of stealing money. That is
Okay.
out of line. You're out of order.
Okay.
Moderate your tone, and
Right.
you can keep going. No more
Okay.
attacks on him.
Okay, I got a question to ask him then, since I'm a resident of this community. He said in his TV commercial that he knew how to fix the roads. Could he tell us how he fixed those roads? Can you please tell us that? How you done that?
I'm pretty sure you know how this works. We don't respond to you.
Right, but afterwards, like the last gentleman said.
I think we're good.
Right, well, we know. But from now on, you represent all the people, white people and colored people, straight people, the gays, the lesbians, bisexuals. They don't have anything to do with you no more because you use them. And the bobbleheads, what you love to call people, bobbleheads. So you represent them too, so just make sure you remember that. Last but not least, all those people who came up here tonight and said they want to run for city council, remember, you work for the people. You don't come up here to get along with people. You come up here to get it right. So that's what you need to do. There's a lot more involved in this city than you just coming out here saying you want to get along with these people. And I hope you guys who don't get appointed to the position come back down here and fight for the people, because we didn't hear anybody say we would like to fight for the people tonight.
All right, thank you, Mr. Jefferson.
All right.
Anyone else under the communications from citizens? Yes, sir?
Hi. So first thing I want to do is congratulate Councilman Shannon on his win. And also, since I have him here and didn't even see him walk in, congratulate, or rather thank Henry Yanez for his years of service. So my inquiry today was about the ballot proposal on marijuana that was recently passed back in November. The ordinance put forth today was in regards to personal use, and businesses were explicitly ruled out. But from what I understand, the ordinance, as it was passed back in November, gave local governments a degree of freedom when it came to zoning regulation. Perhaps our city attorney can correct me if I'm wrong. So I was wondering, quite briefly, if this honorable body had a position on this zoning regulation, and if, considering this is my first council meeting, regrettably, if there were already any ordinances on the books to deal with this issue.
All right, thank you. We'll answer the questions after everybody's had a chance to talk, okay? Anyone else under communications from citizens? If not, I'll close that portion, go on to reports from city administration. Mr. Vanderpool, anything?
Nothing further, Mayor.
Mr. Koszybski, anything?
Nothing tonight, Mayor.
Okay, I'll open it up to council for reports or new business. Anyone?
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Radke.
First, I just wanted to thank everyone who came up here and gave a presentation and applied for a position on city council. I know what it's like to sit in that audience. I sat in that audience for 5 years, and I wasn't appointed twice. And I decided to run for office. So I encourage you, if you really do care about the city and you really want to make an improvement, you really think you're the best person for the job, to consider running. Because, the city can always use people who care enough about the city like I did to run and hopefully win. If not, you've made an impression and you have ideas you run on and you kind of drive the city forward with those. So I want to thank you all for applying. I'm definitely going to take you all under consideration. Secondly, without objection, I was hoping to have the city administration take up the sign ordinance in 60 days. Now, we've talked about amending it to remove the registration requirement for commercial signs. I'd like to have it come back to council so that we can actually amend the ordinance if possible and change it.
I certainly have no objection to it. Anyone have objection to that?
You know I do.
Okay, Mrs. Zarko has.
I do.
Anyone else object to it?
I object as well.
We've got two. Anyone else have an objection to that? I think we have sufficient support to bring it back to council. Do you need anything else, Mr. Koszybski?
Just for clarity, you're looking to
Remove
have
the registration requirement from
registration,
the ordinance.
and that's the only amendment?
Yes, as of right now, we can always open it up when it comes back, but.
That's direction. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Radke, anything else?
I think that's all I have.
Okay. Council, anyone else on reports, new business, anything?
Mayor Taylor?
Mrs. Schmidt?
Through the chair to Mr. Vanderpool. Mr. Vanderpool, in your report, you mentioned the Christmas tree pickup. Is there a possibility that leaves can also be picked up at the same time? Because it's, yard waste essentially? Or is that because they're being chipped, leaves can't be included with that?
Mr. Vanderpool?
Thank you, Mayor. Councilwoman Schmidt, that's correct. It's the latter. Unfortunately, leaves can no longer be collected. The compost facilities are closed, and leaves can't be commingled with garbage and put in the landfill. The Christmas trees will be chipped, and again, the chips made available for other purposes. They will not go into the landfill.
So if people put bags of leaves out now, they won't be picked up with regular trash?
Well, GFL is not supposed to pick them up. I suppose it's conceivable that GFL may not know their leaves. That's possible, but yes, they're not supposed to be commingled with regular garbage.
So residents are supposed to leave bags of leaves all winter in their backyards?
Well, we widely publicize the last leaf collection date, and that did end.
I understand that. The issue is the oak trees. The oak trees don't drop their leaves until end of November, beginning of December, sometimes in almost January. So I know in my neighborhood, there's a lot of oak trees. So there are a lot of people that still have leaves. So there's no.
It is a problem. The leaves fell late. If individuals want to give us a call, if there's unique circumstances, we can certainly take a look at it, but we're simply not going to be able to reopen the compost facilities citywide.
No, I understand that, but, okay, thank you. I have nothing further.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Schmidt. Anyone else tonight?
Mayor Taylor?
Mrs. Zarko?
Back to the leaves. I thought GFL still picked up the leaves with your trash, even though they didn't pick it up on a separate collection, but you could still put your leaves out there. I thought that was their policy, because they won't do a special run. But I could be wrong. If we could check with them, that would be great. And then the people that spoke tonight, if you aren't chosen as the candidate for city council, I would hope that you would consider serving on one of our boards and commissions. So, and look at what might interest you and fill out the application so that in the future, you'll know something about how the city works, and I think you might find something of interest there because they were all good presentations. And lastly, I hope everybody has happy holiday. Whatever you're celebrating, I hope it's happy, and make sure that you share the most important gift, and that's the gift of time. That's it.
Thank you. Council, anyone else? Mr. Shannon?
Were we able to answer the gentleman's question about the zoning issue?
Marijuana.
I'll take a stab at it.
Okay.
So, recently, within, I think it was the last meeting, was it? We passed an ordinance prohibiting commercial establishments from existence in the city of Sterling Heights selling recreational marijuana. So, based on the prohibition that we passed at the last council meeting, it really renders moot the idea of where it would be zoned or wouldn't be zoned. That was just with regard to recreational marijuana. We are going to move forward with the process of potentially developing a medical marijuana ordinance, and when that comes up over the next few months, there will certainly be discussion about what would be the proper zoning districts for those uses. We've also asked the city administration to bring an update of the recreational marijuana, basically where the state is on their they're going to come up with guidelines and rules for how recreational marijuana is going to work. And we've asked for an update in a year. And if it happens in a year that the city council wants to go forward with an ordinance at that time, again, certainly the zoning districts are going to be one of the most important components of any sort of discussion there. But as of right now, we've opted out of recreational marijuana establishments, and we've taken no action on medical marijuana establishments. So it's essentially not prohibited in any, it's not allowed in any zoning district. I hope, if that doesn't answer your question, I'm happy to meet with the city attorney afterwards and we can try to resolve it. Okay? All right, thank you, sir.
Mr. Mayor,
Mrs. Koski.
through the chair to our city attorney, I got the impression this evening from a couple of our speakers that they were looking for petitions, forms. I was always under the impression that we do not prepare those, that maybe we might give guidance as to how a petition would be drafted, but that's not some kind of form that we supply. Would you help me out there?
Mr. Koszubski.
Thank you, Mayor. You're right, Mrs. Koski. In fact, we don't give any advice even on how to prepare the form. That would be legal advice. Anyone that is going to start a ballot initiative has to sort of figure that out on their own. There's state law that covers this, election law that covers this, and the city charter that covers this. And that's the extent of what I can point them to without violating what would be Michigan law on providing legal advice to somebody that isn't city council or the city itself. So that's where that stands. There would be no ballots, ballot initiative language that we would ever draft or supply. And Ms. Briscoe would not have any forms on file. That would be something you'd have to create. So that would be the answer.
Okay.
So they would seek legal counsel, correct?
Exactly. That's how the last ballot initiative done back in 2014 was handled, and that's how it's supposed to be handled.
Mrs. Costa, will you yield for a question?
Certainly.
To the chair, to Mr. Koszubski. In recall elections, the county board approves language that's to form, not to the content. Is that the same for this, or is this a totally different thing?
Totally different
I'm
thing.
just curious about that. Yeah.
Totally different thing.
Okay. That's all I have, Mrs. Koski.
That was my question.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Koski. Anyone else, Council? Mrs. Sarowski?
Yes, hi, thank you, Mayor Taylor. Just wanted to also congratulate everyone who did come and speak and wanted to be appointed, gave up their time, told us about themselves, because this is where we don't get as much of an opportunity any other time to see who you are, what you're interested in, what you can bring to the table. And it's extremely important to allow all the residents who are interested to have that opportunity. So I thank you very much for that, and it's very important to me to hear you, to see you, to get to know a little bit more about you. Mr. Matthews, I'm a nurse. I work with home care. I do have some names of some senior communities you might be interested in. I'll get that to you. I was sitting here getting phone numbers while we were listening, so I've got that for you. And again, just finally, I'd like to say goodbye to Nate, because this is the last meeting that we'll have with you. So thank you again. It's been a great pleasure. And to the residents, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and have a very safe and Happy New Year.
Mr. Shannon, anything else?
No, I think I covered everything in my speech, and it was great to have some of the, the joys of the city council seat displayed here this evening.
Oh, yes. I'm sure you're
great
going to,
memories.
I'm sure you're going to miss
Great
it.
memories.
So you're going to miss it so much. Well, no, we thank you for your service here in the city. And couple things before we adjourn, though. Mr. Vanderpool mentioned Coats for Kids at the front end of this meeting, and I would just encourage you, there's still a few more weeks left. If you have the ability this Christmas season and holiday season to dig into your pockets to purchase a new coat, new gloves, or new hats for children, there certainly is a need out there, and we've actually had some pretty decent weather here. We've seen the sun, and it's not been so bad, but it's going to start getting really cold out, and so those coats and hats and gloves certainly come in handy. And we were really blessed this year to have the support of somebody from the community who stepped up and bought 300 coats for kids, and it was just blown away by that sort of commitment, and it shows what kind of community I think we have. That something I'm really proud of, really proud to be a part of. And I also want to give just a brief shout out to the Burlington Coat Factory here in Sterling Heights. My wife went there to try to coordinate all that, and those coats are pretty much being provided at cost. So Burlington's not making any profit on those coats. So that's a really big contribution from Burlington as well. So really an awesome thing for our community, I think. So if you have the ability, I really want to get coats for kids, and I also really want to beat Rick Stathakis and Mayor Tom Dion from Utica. So let's see if we can get our Sterling Heights numbers up even higher. I was going to say the same thing about the petitions, Mr. McGregor. You kind of got to figure that out on your own. We can't be producing those, but really, I encourage you and wish you a lot of success with that 4-year term idea you had. Good luck. I'll be your first signature. And with that, I would just say to everyone, have a very Merry Christmas. Have a Happy New Year. Thank you, Mr. Shannon, for your service. We wish you good luck. And I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Support.
Been moved and supported. No discussion. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.